This is the question I was asking myself. Can this little camera here compete with a full frame sensor in my Leica Q3? Well, you might think this is ridiculous. There's absolutely no way, but please bear with me. You see, this here is my Ricoh GR4 and it's kind of broken. And if you want to know what's really wrong with this camera, check out my video that I made talking about what I don't like about the Ricoh GR4. In that video I go into a little bit more detail. And this here is another Ricoh GR4. And this little guy is different because this is the monochrome version of the GR4. This just happened by accident. This was totally unplanned, but suddenly the opportunity presented itself to try out the Ricoh GR4 monochrome. So of course I couldn't say no, but tomorrow it will go back. Besides the sensor and a few design changes, it's basically the same camera. Maybe there's only the status LED here that is white instead of green, and also if you turn off the camera, the rear screen stays monochrome, which is a nice touch, but of course this will have no effect on the performance of the camera. If you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you might know that I owned a Leica M246 monochrome and also later on a Leica Q2 monochrome, which I absolutely loved, and I was shooting the camera for almost 3 years. And since I already have some experience with monochrome cameras, I know exactly what the downsides of this kind of cameras are. Now, the biggest advantage of a monochrome camera and a monochrome sensor is the much improved low light abilities. So that got me thinking, can this APS-C size sensor in the Ricoh GR4 monochrome compete with this much larger full frame sensor in my Leica Q3 when it comes to low light? And of course I did some testing and the results were quite interesting. You'll see those shortly. Now, what was really fun about the Q2 monochrome was to use color filters to manipulate how the black and white image turns out. Now, the Ricoh GR4 monochrome basically has a red filter built in, which you can turn off or turn on just by pressing one button, which is very convenient. But to me, I think this is a pretty odd choice, and I think an orange filter would have been much better than a red filter. But luckily I have the filter adapter for the GR4, so you can see the difference for yourself. The difference is not massive, but you can see the lips are brighter on the image using the red filter, and also the eyes are darker. In general, I wouldn't use a red filter for people with blue eyes because they will look very dark in an almost creepy way. This is why I think having this adapter on the GR4 is very useful, because it gives you much more control over how your black and white images will look. Now let's have a look at some high ISO samples side by side, and let's find out if the Ricoh GR4 monochrome can compete or even outclass my Leica Q3 when it comes to low light. Alright, so here we are in Lightroom and let's have a look at some files. Let's start with ISO 3200. Now on the left side we have the Leica Q3 and on the right side is the Ricoh GR4 monochrome. And let's have a look. And as you can see, the settings were 1/30th, f5.6, ISO 3200. And let's zoom in here. And by the way, the Leica Q3 was shot at 36 megapixels. Alright, as you can see, here is probably not much to see, which is, I think it's good, because there's no real difference here that is very noticeable between the Ricoh and the Leica. I mean, the only thing you can see is that the Ricoh is a little bit darker, but I think, let's turn on the profile for the lens. But in terms of noise, I don't think there's a big difference here. I think that's pretty similar. Now 12,800 ISO, f11, 1/30th. One thing you have to keep in mind, don't look so much on sharpness, because probably at f11 diffraction already kicks in on the especially here on the Ricoh. So I wouldn't give too much about the sharpness because I think it's probably already reduced a little bit. On the Leica, not so much. Alright, just look at the grain, and just by the looks of it, the Ricoh is holding up very nicely. And also, if you look in the shadow area here on the Leica, I mean, to be honest, for a 60 megapixel camera, 12,500 ISO here looks pretty good. It's not much to complain here. But to my surprise, look at the Ricoh, man. The Ricoh just is holding up very nicely. It's just amazing. I would say it's very comparable. Should we just have a look at the normal GR4, how this is comparing to the two cameras here? Right, so here we can see a massive difference compared to the monochrome. Here you can see it's way noisier. There's not much detail. It's just yeah, it's not much left here. You can also see that the rendering here on the flash, you can barely read. On the Leica, no problem. Also here in this area, you can see the noise creeping in here. A lot of noise, not much detail left. I mean, to be fair, it doesn't look too bad, so it's probably usable, but obviously the Leica looks way better. Now again, we have the Q3 on the left side and the monochrome on the right side. And as you can see, there's some noise, but it's very comparable. Besides the noise, which is very, I would say it's almost on the same level. Look in the darker areas here. It's kind of similar, but the only thing that I've noticed, or that is very noticeable, is that the Ricoh is losing a little bit of contrast here. Now let's go to 51,000 ISO. Now you can see it more clearly, the loss of contrast on the Ricoh. Here it's even more pronounced. It's more visible. Also on the memory card here, you can see a much bigger difference. I would probably give the Q3 the edge here, just slightly. I mean, at least in black and white. The image might look horrible in color. If we look here in the darker areas, yeah, here's just there's not much here. It's just like, I don't know, not much detail. I mean, here, to be fair, not much detail either. So, I mean, we're talking about 50,000 ISO, so I'm not really surprised about that. You know what is interesting? It looks, by the looks of it, the contrast loss on the regular GR4 is not as bad as on the monochrome. That's interesting. There's a lot more noise here compared to the Leica. Yeah, it's way more noise. Alright, now here you can see there's more noise in the Leica Q image for sure compared to the Ricoh. But also you can see the Ricoh lost even more contrast here. So, I mean, they both don't look great, but I think they're both somewhat usable, at least in this setting here. And what really takes me by surprise here is how good the Ricoh GR4 monochrome is holding up against this way larger sensor. So that's pretty nice. Alright, there you have it, guys. So to me, the result was kind of interesting because I wasn't expecting that the Ricoh GR4 monochrome is so close to the Leica Q3 when it comes to low light. And now just imagine the Leica Q3 monochrome, what this thing will be like. I mean, this is already crazy at night. But the Q3 monochrome, that must be absolutely insane. Now here's a real world sample that I took, and I want you to guess the ISO. No, it wasn't shot in the daytime, and the light you can see comes from a street lamp. Alright, it was shot at ISO 64, no, not 6400, but 64,000, which is pretty wild. Yes, it is noisy, but there is still a lot of detail in the shot left. Now the question is, do I need a Ricoh GR4 monochrome? Absolutely not. But do I want one? Hell yeah. Now if you're interested, I will put a link in the video description where you can download some of the raw files and play with them for yourself and just have a look. I think it's probably better than just looking on YouTube because of the compression. Probably the results don't look as good. So download the raw files and just see them for yourself. Alright guys, I see you in the next one. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.